Hi there and welcome back to the BAMREF show. No Chairman Joel this week, he's off on his holidays, but we do have, I'm delighted to say, the BAMREF CEO Ajibola with us, and I'm even more pleased to say the first ever Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager at the PGMO. And in addition to that role, he is also the Corex Manager, the man who leads the development of our young referees. He is Arran Williams. Great to have you here on the show.
Thank you there, Darren. Good to be with you.
On the BAMREF show this week. Discipline. The figures out last week show an increase in bad behaviour and also discrimination. Yes, that's subject again at grassroots level. How can we support our referees to feel safe when they go into the workplace? When is a red card not a red card? BAMREF Watch is a really good one this week. And when referees get it right, often we focus on the mistakes, but we're going to look at when referees do the right thing this week. We're going to give credit where it is due. But let's start with our special guest, Arran Williams. He is, as I've said before, from the PGMO. Let's talk about your journey as well, Arran, because you've been a level 3 referee since
2022.
2022.
Yeah, refereeing since 2011.
Okay, refereeing since 2011. You've been a coach, a mentor, a developer of refereeing talent. You were the first ever EDI manager at the PGMO. I always forget the L doesn't exist anymore. You were the FA Grassroots Hero of the Year in 2013 and the FA Young Referee of the Year as well. You've been busy.
Quite a resume. Yes, quite a resume.
I would read more, but you didn't pay me enough money.
We can have that arranged if you need, Darren.
What made you want to become a referee in the first place?
If I go back to World Cup 2002, Japan, South Korea, that game at the very end, the final,
yes,
refereed by the man himself, Luigi Collina.
Scary eyes, I call it.
Yeah. Germany, Brazil, the game that really sets that fire burning inside about football. You go forward, you learn throughout, being a young man that maybe you're not going to make it as a footballer, so what do you want to do? You want to try the coaching route. Is that a route into working in football? I'll never forget the careers advisor, lovely person, but they were dismissive, shall we say, I'll use that tone, of a career in football.
Yeah.
Football is all that I'd ever known, all that I'd ever wanted to do, and here I was being told, stockbroking, investment banking, that'll make you some money, you can go do whatever you want then in football. So we get to this point in 2011, I've just started university, and I'm enjoying it. I'm moving over to UCFB, the University College of Football Business, to do football, business and finance, combining that kind of careers element earlier on I mentioned. Playing grassroots football at kind of a step 7 level, trying to do coaching with young people, with adults in the men's game, in the women's game, but realistically, without any professional game experience, there was a ceiling there. Pure chance. Found out about refereeing, found out that the idea of getting to the top of the game in refereeing was a pathway.
Yeah.
It wasn't a kind of, you had to gain experience of in-game, what I would never have got.
Can you remember how you said by chance?
Yeah.
What was it?
I was searching through, so I'd done my Prozone level 1, so the analysis side of the game. I'd gone on and tried to do a scouting level 1 that had been launched around that time, so I thought maybe that's my way into the game. And then I think I googled ways to work in football, and one of the options was referee.
The last option, I probably.
But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Not only on the Google search, but in my mind, referee. What's that? It's just some bloke who runs around in the middle.
Old bloke.
I'll let you say it. You're not that old yet.
Historically, old bloke running around in the middle, rather than young fit guys like yourselves,
and you as well,
managing the game.
Yeah. So where do you go from there?
So that takes me through to our County FA website, West Riding County FA for myself. I sign up, I go up into a place called Oakworth, just up the about half an hour drive for me outside of the Bronte County up in Haworth. And you spend 2 weekends being developed by a lovely gentleman who actually recently passed away, David Fuller.
Yeah.
The Madler brothers, Mark Dwyer, who's a Select Group 2 assistant referee, Tom Neild was there, a gentleman called Gavin Scott, who has since gone on to become a Football League assistant referee, who I ended up going on a game with him last season, and that was where we reconnected because he's had some time out of the game.
And I'll make a point here, Aaron, and respectfully speaking now, and this is one of the reasons why BAMREF was formed. Aaron just rattled through a few names whom I know that went on the same journey as when he started. And a lot of those guys have gone on to be Football League referees, retired, gone through the system, started at the same time as Aaron. And here we are, we're talking about Aaron's fantastic journey and all the resume he's got. He's still yet to get to that level.
Yes.
Where people he started with at around the same time have gone on to officiate similar to the dream that he had. And this is one of the reasons that keeps people like myself involved in BAMREF to ask the question, well, why? Because it can't just be ability only. They had the same lessons, got the same passion, they've got the same desire.
Yes.
Why are they there and gone through doing all those great things, whereas Aaron is trying on the one hand to referee, but now left on the administration side to still stay involved in a passion that he thoroughly cares about. So it's a really a sore subject,
yes,
but often an oversight that people just glaze past.
And quite an interesting point, because did you see that as a potential obstacle for you, the issue that Aji's raising there?
Not at the time. What I saw was an opportunity to get into the game, to experience my passion, have the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
You talk about a football game, when you're stood behind that free kick that's been lined up 20 yards out, the wall, you've walked the wall back, you get to stand back and just watch that ball go up over the wall into the top corner. The celebration, you'll know this, the hairs that stand up on the back of your neck. No better seat in the house.
Yeah.
And you get paid to do it. And then just to come full circle, you have those moments where you go, so take you back to the final of World Cup 2002, and only a couple of years ago I go to the BAMREF conference, and there's a gentleman there who goes by the name of Phil Sharp.
Yes. This name keeps coming up in the show. So many people are huge admirers of ex-World Cup referee Phil Sharp.
How can you not be?
Absolutely.
How can you not be? What a man he is. And for someone who has been at the pinnacle of world football,
yes,
has assisted and been part of a team with arguably the refereeing great in Pierluigi Collina. And he just comes in, has a coffee with you. He's just a normal guy. And he just has a chat with you, and you tell him, oh my God, I was a kid watching you growing when I was growing up, and now I'm stood in the room with you. We're just having a brew. How are you doing, Phil?
And so that actually lights that fire underneath you to become a referee.
Absolutely.
Were there any obstacles?
There's always challenges in life. There's always moments, and when you won't start taking refereeing seriously, you commit. I'm someone who will throw themselves wholeheartedly into something I'm doing. That can be a challenge in personal life. You are, in my sort of want and determination to proceeding refereeing and progressing refereeing, that requires you to almost somewhat commit yourself to things like Saturdays and Tuesdays being match days, to a physical training program, to what you're eating, how you're thinking, you're reviewing your own games, you're watching football to be prepared for the game at the weekend, and that comes at a sacrifice to other elements. And speaking candidly, have I always got that right? Absolutely not. And that, for me, is probably one of the most important lessons I learned early, that if you can have a strong, stable structure at home, Saturdays and Tuesdays become so much easier.
I can identify with you, Darren. I remember when I started out in journalism, and I'd go to every game. I didn't care where it was.
Yeah.
And to your point, I didn't really care whether I was paid or not. I just wanted to be a journalist. And I'd go to games at the weekend, I'd go to games in midweek, I'd do other work in those times when I was working for publications that couldn't afford to pay me, but I had to pay my rent. But I just wanted to be a journalist. So I get it. I absolutely understand it. But at the time I was single, I didn't have children, so it didn't matter. But once you have children, or once you become a husband, you have obligations, and that must be hard.
Yeah, it is incredibly hard. It is incredibly hard, but it's tempered. I would imagine the same with Aaron, being a family man, and a father. And it's tempered by the fact that if your family are supportive of your journey, whatever the career is, they see the enjoyment and the passion. And I think with a refereeing lens, you can't make up how you feel about the vocation itself. It starts as a vocation. It's like people that go to the gym, Darren, or people that.
I love that you look at me.
Your voice speaks volume, doesn't it, Darren? You see, it is. But there are people that go to the pub every single day, and that's their get off time. Refereeing becomes something of that nature, but it does also mean you have to balance that out. Because when you're younger, there is that danger of it's all or nothing. That's all you know. And more so even now, the danger in the modern game is that the younger referees are almost trying to be painted with a brush of old. That this has to be the only thing you do, and there is no breakout, there is no offloading, off-winding, and the job becomes everything you know. It's refereeing, and from a mental health and well-being perspective, that creates a whole new layer of challenges. But I think coming through as a young referee, you go with it with the best of intentions, but then life hits you, right? When I say life hits you, I'm not just talking about refereeing stuff. You start to notice all the nuances around you. I don't know Aaron's experiences, but one thing I remember coming through is I'm often remembered at clubs I go for crimes in their view that I committed probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And you turn up and the opening gambit is, you're that referee who sent my player off about 3 years ago. And I'm thinking, what player? When did that happen? And so on. So, as people of colour, let's be direct.
That's what BAMREF is.
You're often remembered, right? And those sort of nuances are the challenges that we face, in addition to the refereeing challenges around resilience, around ownership and accountability of owning your mistakes and managing people and being the leader on the day by default. I often joke about I turn up in a ground and all of a sudden I am subject matter expert for everything. The groundsman expect me to know. The secretary expect me to know weather conditions and what's going to happen, how the pitch is going to play. The safety officer wants me to know absolutely everything and is asking me questions about safety procedures.
Does that buy the whole twice as hard thing, where you've got to make sure you know stuff other people, your counterparts, wouldn't necessarily know, because you are going to be challenged on that? People are going to doubt your expertise in it almost.
I think this is the side of refereeing that people don't see. They see the 90 minutes, you walk out, ball underarm, blow that whistle, you kick off the game, you do your bit in the 90 minutes and you come back at the end. And what people don't see, that I think is something that we as a collective refereeing fraternity need to share more, it's all those bits behind the scenes. I just feel like there's a story to be told there about that role of the referee.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the interesting thing about journalism is that lots of people think it's really glamorous, and most of your time is spent waiting for players, waiting for managers, waiting for press conferences. That's why we're such...
And hoping they'll talk to you.
Exactly. That's why we're such gossips. That's for next week. Who's your role model?
The referees associations were a huge part of your network at the very beginning of refereeing. And having at the time found that actually our local referees association, Halifax, had closed down some years prior. I'd ended up sort of traversing a couple of the other ones. I'd gone to Huddersfield, I'd gone to Heavy Wool, and you pick up as you go people along the way who put that arm around your shoulder, extend that olive branch of knowledge and experience that is invaluable to anyone walking into any industry for the first time. We then got to this point where we said, actually, there were 2 years down, not even 2 years down the line, a year down the line, there are 100 and odd referees, I think, at the time operating out of Halifax alone, or in the Calderdale area. and they're all having to go to Bradford, to Huddersfield, to Heavy Woolen, to Keighley, wherever else, to get that networking, that development. Posed the question. Funnily enough, it was over a pint after the Sunday League games. We all went back to this pub. We all met as a group of referees and just went, what happened to Halifax RA? Where's it gone? So again, another incredible person, Trevor Simpson. Again, sadly passed away in recent times, and he was an inspirational character. His grandson, Lewis Dawson, who's a level 2 referee and a colleague at PGMO, we started a small group between us, Jane Sims, Danielle, and a number of other officials within the area. Said, why don't we just restart Halifax Referees Association? So we went from, over a pint in a pub, let's do this. It's almost a little bit Shaun of the Dead in some way. we're gonna do this. We're gonna take over the world, and so we're doing this. And all of a sudden, you ended up with a regular monthly Referees Association meeting, 45 on average a month for a number of years.
When I started, I was signposted to refereeing associations to go, and I started that way, similar to yourself. The person that sort of kept me going after my interest in statutory referee.
When you both went to these associations, were you the only people of colour?
Well, this is exactly the point I'm making. You sort of walk into that room and you see straight away a massive generation gap. Most of the colleagues in the room were, 60, 70, mindfully. I know I'm still intimidating. Well, as a 20-year-old, quite frankly, you don't really even think about the intimidation. Yeah. But you feel, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? Straight away, because you look at the conversation, you look at the habitual tray, cups of coffees and nice and teas and biscuits and the traditional way in which they manage the meeting. And, I'm a young boy who's grown up in Brixton, roll up trousers and try and get into this new sport. And you're told to go to a meeting and you sit there and they've lost you within 15 minutes because you can't connect with people.
And are they intimidated by you? Is there any antipathy from them towards you?
Well, I don't know, is the answer. I don't even know if they even saw me in the room. In all honesty.
That's worse.
No, it is, because conversation never changed. There was no... Arran made interesting. They formed their own, which is great because there's people coming together to form their own. But when you've got legacy existing RA referee associations, and they're all over the country, and there used to be the traditional means of creating role models and bringing the next generation along. And it's again similar to what we see in the world: the generation gap between leaders and the people they're leading. Massive gaps.
Same for you.
So, having gone initially to your Huddersfields and your Heavy Woolens, I think there's part of me that goes, there's a youthful kind of inexperience or naivety in there that you walk in the room and because being 18, 19 at the time and coming from a small working class town just outside of Halifax, the kind of bits that might hold you back in some ways. I'd spent much of my youth growing up in lively environments, as you can probably imagine. Spending time with my dad, going to places and being in places, that you got to this point where actually being around those people for me was somewhat natural in some ways. Yeah. Now that being said, that then led to add that to the kind of youthful naivety, and you go. So I absolutely agree with you, by the way, on the point of going, the messaging sometimes that came across. Darren, if I said to you, some of these meetings start with about a half an hour review of the minutes of the last meeting, of the chair's agenda address, the monthly financial stuff, all these kind of bits, and just going, can that be done on email before, please?
Or even better, get the youth to have their own little,
absolutely,
and take away what you can to help you shape whatever. These minutes are important in terms of
back then there was a very fixed way of doing things.
It's right. It was the only way of doing things.
Yeah, and so that didn't turn you off refereeing at all.
It made it so much more worthwhile. The challenge of going in and going, I'm new to this world. Why are we doing things like this? Could we take that out, focus on development, we'll go do the social bit afterwards. We can do the social bit before, but let's prioritise that 2-hour slot to go. We've got a referee in who's going to show you, be a role model, and give you the best practice.
And with that in mind, I want to talk about some of your landmarks, because certainly you, Aaron, in conjunction with BAMREF, your work's led to the first female referee in the Premier League. First female and the first British South Asian referees to take charge of Premier League games. First black referee in over 15 years to take charge of a Premier League game. Also, obviously, Ackerhausen running the line, Premier League game. To both of you, how satisfying is that, first of all?
It's always incredible to see first. I'm sure, Darren, you'll have had plenty of experiences in your career where you see a first. But for me, it's about getting to this point where we normalise, where yes, those are crucial, pivotal moments that you'll never get another first. But how do we get to a point, and how do we continue this drive to get to the point where we're normalising all of this, and we are in a position where actually maybe we're not speaking about 3 people.
Yeah.
We're speaking about a group of people.
Yes.
And we're speaking about it as actually, it's not the first, it's the 5th, it's the 10th.
But that's where BAMREF comes in.
Well, it is indeed. And look, I must say I'm incredibly pleased for those colleagues that they've been able to write their names in history in whatever capacity is, key landmark appointments. Well, then this sort of question I often ask myself is, yes, on the one hand, great to celebrate those guys. Is it worthy of something to celebrate now, given where we are in society? I mean, history speaks volume. We're talking about 150 years plus of football in this country. We're talking about significant contribution from black and brown communities throughout the history of the game, even to now. Whether you look at it from a financial perspective, the Premier League's worth over 4 billion at the moment. 40% plus of those are from black and brown communities, generating significant amount of income into the game from a playing perspective, from every areas of the game. And then we look at other areas of football, not just refereeing inside. We're talking about black and brown communities and their representation, giving the contribution on one hand, and where they're recognised for their contribution. And for me, what it does is draws back on what history has always done, minimising the contribution of people that are like me and Aaron and others. So it's very, very difficult to really enjoy this celebration of our achievement, because you think there is so much more work to be done.
Okay, let me reframe it then. What statement do you think it made?
Well, I think those accolades are justified within reason. But actually, it's what happens next now. Is it really a landmark step change? And not avoiding the question, I think the jury's out for me personally, because we need to see sustained succession planning, not just a one-off, a point in time. And by that I mean we've been quite fruitful with the leadership team we're working with at this moment in time. But what happens when they change? Because when they go out the window, who takes over? And is there policies in place to protect the legacy of the work that has been done, to make sure that this is now a cultural reformation journey? And whilst there is a time to build in the growth that needs to happen over time, what are we doing today that samples that? There are some initiatives that point to that, but will you keep supporting it, like the Corrects program as an example? That's grown.
Answer. Thank you.
Well, in terms of will we keep with Correct?
Yeah, do you think all those questions around what happens with the longevity of this culture, this climate, this movement towards diversifying refereeing?
If we talk about a couple of key areas, and we're preaching to the converted here, obviously, refereeing is very much a decision-making based skill, experience. Research tells us around diversity of experience, of thought, and all those other elements, within the talent pool gives us the best opportunity to get the best people into those positions to make those decisions. When we go back to pre-2022, we know what that pool looked like. We know what those people look like. We know what that gave us. Since then, people like ourselves, the organisations that we equally represent, notwithstanding Raj and the FA within that, have driven a step change. Now that's a line in the sand where we go, a mark in the sand where we go, we've got a real movement happening now. I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, for the first time this season, people who look like us could see recruitment, targeted recruitment into the game. They could see mentoring, a layer on top of that, keeping you in the game. They could see talent identification, a programme that valued who they were, a programme that if they were ready and able to accelerate their development into the professional game, they could see people in the professional game and those at the very top of the game. They could see a pathway, and there was almost a funnel and a light at the end of the tunnel that said, certainly for the first time for me in 15 years of refereeing, this journey from beginning to the very peak of the peak could be for you.
Just before we move on, I'd talk about the mental health challenges, because there are lots of positives we've been focusing on them throughout this conversation, but there have been negatives as well for referees, for black and brown referees. Very obvious low points, because discrimination is what we all have to deal with. We know that the recent statistics produced by the FA last week showed that there are still referees suffering discrimination. There are still serious case allegations. They are on the increase. How do you support referees to get through those tough moments? That's a question for both of you, because obviously you lead around about 700 referees and you are part of a development program that steels people who look like us to go to work.
It's
a strong word, but I think it's...
We give them a place where they feel valued.
Yes.
We give them a place where they are respected for who they are. Ultimately, the person walks through that door when they come into Corex before the referee does. And that, for me, is where the journey or the start of that mental health and well-being package, what it looks like. We respect and we reflect the value that Aji walks through that door as a level 1 referee, as a national group referee, but also that another referee walks through that door who is a level 3 referee or a 3W referee or an assistant referee. And that very much lays the foundations of where we begin in terms of ensuring that they feel confident and trusting in the fact that I might make within the programme, Curran, or anyone within the organisation, that you guys are there, and Phil as well, are there for the benefit of them.
Well, I think there are three key points to note here, Darren. I think the first one is one of culture. I think, before we even get into the support level, strangely, football seems to be quite unique in the sense that people feel they can go to a football match at whatever level and be abusive, be discriminatory in their language, and it's okay. Well, it's not. And I think there is not just about penalising or punishing people. There is a real serious effort that needs to go into more education. That's not enough, by the way, because I think there is a real strong place for penalising to reinforce the education. But it's not okay, because, if you did the same thing you did in a football match, even in a place like a pub, you'd probably get arrested, quite frankly.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I do want to put... You raised something to me privately about some images that were going around on social media of referees being shouted at, referees being assaulted.
Yeah.
And you were saying this is a concern because it creates that culture that suggests that it's okay. To be that way towards officials.
Absolutely unacceptable. And it sort of infuriates me on a personal level to think abuse, even in any kind of comedical way, is fun to gesture at match officials, and make emojis and so on and have a laugh about it. You don't see it in rugby, you don't see it in cricket, tennis, or any national sport about officials being the centre of such kind of bad behaviour, if you know what I mean.
Arran, just very quickly before we wrap up, what are your ambitions?
Personally, in terms of my own refereeing, or
Yes.
yeah, for me, it's about enjoyment. It's about going as far as I can take myself, my body, my state of mind, about being the role model that I wanted to see, about ensuring that those who look like us, that those within wider refereeing, that anyone who goes, I want to pick up that whistle, put that shirt on, and take the leap of faith and become a referee, comes into it and knows actually this is a journey for them, this is something they'll enjoy, and they'll be in a position, hopefully in 1 to 10 years, whatever it might be, to sit back and reflect and go, I've impacted on someone else in or out of refereeing because of what I've done.
Just to sort of support that, Aaron sort of mentioned 1, 2 or 10 years. Historically, Darren, and I must go and sort of highlight this, refereeing used to be a 20, 25 year career from start to get to the top. And in recent times, I am now starting to see officials that only started refereeing 5, 6 years ago, officiating at the very highest level. You know, one of my personal ambitions as BAMREF organisation is to oversee people from our community coming into the game, doing our BAMREF lifetime and officiating on the Premier League within this sort of timeline, because it's already happening. We're seeing officials, as Tom Kirk, I think, you know, 7, 8 years in his Premier League, you know, doing a Premier League game. You know, if Tom can do it, why can't a young Arran Williams or a young Ajibola?
The young's definitely got in mind.
Well, yeah, you know, unfortunately, you've refereed 1 at 7 years now, Aaron. But, you know, part of my ambition is to oversee that kind of a journey.
Just before we go to BAMREF, you were honoured FA Grassroots Hero of the Year by Prince William of Buckingham Palace. What was the inside of the palace like?
They have gold seats in the toilet, by the way.
I will show you the photo that I had of that morning. So I nearly didn't make that. There's a funny story. I had a blue Vauxhall Astra at the time. I think it was a 200001 plate.
Did you have a choke on it as well?
Oh, honestly, don't get me started. And it conked out just outside Milton Keynes on the M1. The RAC had to come out, get it going again. We've managed to get there. You can imagine we're at the front of Buckingham Palace, so we had to drive it in. So I've taken this broken, I'll use that term, broken Vauxhall Astra onto the front lawn through the gates at Buckingham Palace outside that big roundabout. These people taking photos of me.
The attitude car of the day.
Big satin car next to me in a best, dress and everything. I'm there in my suit going, we're absolute frauds here.
This is one of the lessons of being a referee, because you get to every event 2 hours early.
Absolutely.
So that gave Aaron plenty of time to get there on time.
And of course, the invitation. Just keep showing off.
Of course.
Let's do BAMREF Watch. Right, now, Aaron, this is the point where we look at some of the refereeing decisions of the past few days and give our own opinions. Now, this week we're actually going to support an official because Rob Johnson is VAR John Brooks, but made what I believe to be a really good decision in the game between Arsenal and Wolves. Hwang Hee-chan was given a yellow card instead of a red for his tackle on Miles Lewis-Skelly. Now, I heard in commentary it being said, suggested it's a clear red card, it was only a matter of time, and Rob held his nerve. And so too did John Brooks. Guys, talk about it. Great decision.
Happy for you too.
Yeah, look, I think it's always interesting listening to such debates, because I can only reference a point of law. And when you look at that challenge, as it is in its nature, that there are certain criteria that you have to consider as a referee, albeit you process that within seconds. The only real way that could be a red card would be under the terms of serious foul play. And when you look at the criteria that is clearly set out in law for your consideration as a serious, there's about 7 or 8 nuances you've got to think about. And you don't have to tick all 8 boxes. You've got to think about things like the speed of the challenge. You've got to think about the force of the challenge, excessive force or not. You've got to think about, was it a lunge? Was it a straight leg? Were the studs showing? And then you start to get into the realms of, was the player in control of the challenge? And then the final one, you're going to think about, did he endanger the safety of the opponent? Those are your processing tools as a referee that you look at and think, right, what have I just seen? And which box does it tick? You don't have to tick all 6 or 7 boxes, but I think the key one was, for me, excessive force, control, and danger safety. You know, if you're able to tick all those 3 boxes, you've got a problem as a referee. You're thinking, right, this is not a yellow, this is an orange card. And then if you tick all the others, straight leg, lunging, showing the studs, it just goes from, there isn't an orange card, by the way, just for the record. It's just that processing terminology. You start to think, right, that's no longer borderline, this is definitely a red card and is going. So from Rob Jones' perspective, he's looking at that, and if you look at that challenge, you've sort of seen the players pulling out, which shows he was in control. Yes, there was speed, but was there force? It was a natural momentum, and Skelly did get out of the way. There wasn't a straight leg. It wasn't a lunge. It was a slight tackle low, right? And there wasn't no studs showing. So I've listed 7 criteria, of which I'm able to cross off 4 straight away that it wasn't. So you're left with 2, 2.5. And those are, or did they endanger the safety? No, because Skelly got out of the way and he got up straight away. So you could say there'd been more contact, so on, but you're talking ifs and buts. So in that scenario, I think Rob had quite not a great deal to work with, but what he did very well.
Okay, well then this one. Let me give you this one. The Brighton forward Diego Gomez was not sent off for his studs up tackle on Florian Wirtz at the weekend. On Sky Sports News, our colleagues at Sky Sports News, the former referee Darren Gallagher said he should have been sent off. He said it was a red card. Craig Paulson, the referee, doesn't give it, nor does his VAR advise him, as appears to be the case. Guys, do you sympathise with VAR in a situation like this, or does the angle make it look worse than it was?
I think from a VAR perspective, Darren, we've just sort of talked about the criteria you consider.
Yeah.
And I think the VAR's main intervention criteria was a clear and obvious error by the referee. Now, if the referee stood there 5 yards away and he's describing what he's seen clearly, and it matches what the VAR referee is having a look at, how do you then move from an objective to a subjective view to say, wait a minute, I've seen what you've seen, you've described exactly what you've seen, and I agree, but I think you're wrong. That becomes a subjective debate between 2 referees, and that's not really what VAR should be doing. VAR referee may think, yeah, I think that's a red card, but you're telling me exactly what you've seen, and you're not going to say anything different on the screen.
Sure.
So I'll leave that to the bosses on a Monday morning to decide whether you got it right or wrong. Because my job as a VAR person, not that I am,
just to give you that
is to say, you've got it wrong, mate. There's information I've got that you haven't seen, that I think if you see, you make a different decision. Yeah. It's a completely different job. It really is. It's the same industry. It's like an orchestra. We're all playing the same music together, but it's a completely different role.
It's a job that you do exceptionally well, so well that some people get to go to Buckingham Palace. Listen, it's been terrific having you on the show, Arran, and of course yourself, Aji. Next week, the chairman is back. Joel Mannix is back with us. Remember, we want your contribution as well. We would love to have your footage from the non-league, from grassroots. If you're a referee in particular, we want your questions as well. The panel will be back. We'll have another guest for you next week, and we hope to see you too.